This is Britain. Look at this. These are Islamists and wokes. They're trampling on the Union Jack, and he's going to shout, Allahu Akbar. He killed 60 dogs after posing as a rehoming shelter. He's jailed for 5 years. Surely it's got nothing to do with him hating dogs. Surely. Anthony Albanese is screwed either way. If he arrests her, she becomes a martyr. But if they don't arrest her, Pauline is going to keep eating into their voter base, and she's going to keep growing. And this is another pathetic attempt of them forcing you to conform to their values, to their lifestyle, to their worldview. If your child tells you that, oh, my teacher was taking me to a mosque or something, go to your teacher, say, no, I don't want my child to go to a mosque. I don't want it. I don't want my child to be indoctrinated with this BS. All right, folks, this is Harris Sultan. So as you guys know, Pauline Hanson is surging in the polls, and it's got a lot of people worried. And the person who's most worried is Australia's left-wing socialist Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, who's basically a carbon copy of Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is already the most hated Prime Minister in UK's history. Anthony Albanese, up until very recently, because this is his second term, by the way, up until very recently, for some reason, he was still very popular. People still liked him. But after the Bondi Beach terrorist attack, something happened, and Pauline Hanson started surging in the polls, and that got him really worried. So what he did, he hastily passed the hate speech law, and at that time, people said that he's going to be targeting the critics. He's going to be curbing people's free speech. And I kept an open mind, and I said, I'll see how it pans out. So far, they have only cracked down on neo-Nazis. No complaints here. I don't care about them. But they haven't cracked down on the Islamists using the same laws. When an Islamist attacks or threatens the Australian Jewish community, the Australian government doesn't do anything. But when a neo-Nazi does something, then they quickly grab them and arrest them. One of them was recently, I think, sentenced to 1 year in prison or something. Okay. So is it about curbing anti-Semitism, or it's about picking your targets? So Pauline Hanson, after her comments, which were clearly misrepresented, she spoke loosely, but she clearly meant, she clarified it. She meant, how can you know they're good Muslims when you've got 18,000 people on Asia's terror watch list? She was pointing out at the inadequacies of our vetting process. How do we know? And I asked this question, what is your definition of a good Muslim and a radical Muslim? I would like the government to explain it to us. If a Muslim says, I want Sharia in Australia, is that radicalism? If a Muslim says, Sharia is good, we want Sharia everywhere, is that a definition of radical Muslim? Because Muslims tell us that there is no radical Islam, there's no extremist Islam, there's only one Islam. I agree with them. So that's what she meant. But as it turns out, Pauline Hanson is now under investigation under the Albanese government's new hate speech laws. This is what Pauline Hanson shared, okay? Let me share that with you. So Pauline Hanson said, according to news.com.au, the federal police have received reports of a crime following the interview I did with Sky News Australia, in which she made those comments. In other words, they are trying to use Labor's new hate speech laws to put me back in jail. Pauline Hanson was put in jail I think 20 years ago in 2003 or 4 or something. At that time, she was accused of electoral fraud, but her conviction was overturned and she was found not guilty eventually. Let me send a very clear message to those within Labor and the left side of politics. Stop gaslighting the Australian public. None of us have forgotten what happened at Bondi prior to Christmas. We also haven't forgotten what occurred at the Lint Cafe or to Curtis Cheng. Lint Cafe siege back in Sydney probably 10 years ago. Another Islamist, a radical Muslim, or up until that point, we didn't know if he was a good Muslim or a radical Muslim. That's the problem. And we actually want the definition of what's a good Muslim and what's a bad Muslim. So we can, categorize them, and then we can say, okay, this is not for the good Muslims. If Australia doesn't speak up now, our nation will fall victim to the same issues being experienced across Europe, the UK, Canada, and other Western societies. I have more on that. Hang around till the end. I'll show you what exactly are we fighting for here in Australia. So my friend, Avi Yemeni, he's made a video, and let's see what he's saying.
Make no mistake, they're going to try jail Pauline Hanson again. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has just announced that he will allow the appropriate authorities to investigate whether The One Nation leader's recent comments breached Labor's new hate speech laws. This is not a drill. The government is watching the polls. They're nervous and you can see it. And while I don't blame them for being scared, I do blame anyone who supported these hate speech laws in the name of the Jewish community.
I didn't support them.
That includes...
I didn't support them, but it is my habit. I take people at face value. I said, okay, let's see. Let's wait and see. We couldn't stop them, so there's no supporting. But my benchmark was, if I'm going to get a knock on the door, I haven't got it yet, but if they arrest Pauline Hanson, then they're actually screwed either way. Anthony Albanese is screwed either way. Why? Because he's on the wrong course. He's following wrong policies. Let me explain. If he arrests her, she becomes a martyr. She's already surging in the polls. Her party has already become number one in Victoria, which was a Labour stronghold. In my opinion, in the free world, this is a biggest switch from far left wokeism to hard right conservatism, if polls are anything to go by. So she's surging in Victoria, and it's happening everywhere else as well. It's going to happen in Queensland, everywhere. It's going to happen everywhere. But if they don't arrest her using these hate speech laws, then they're screwed that way as well, because Pauline is going to keep eating into their voter base, and she's going to keep growing because we have 2 years. We have 2 years to prepare, guys. So Anthony Albanese is screwed either way, and that's why I don't want to be in his shoes.
Jewish leaders and organizations that gave cover to the Prime Minister while he pushed through this legislation that was clearly designed to silence political opponents. I said it at the time. This was never about protecting Jews. Ironically, it was always going to be used against some of our strongest defenders. Albanese used the Bondi terror attack to ram through sweeping, overreaching laws. And now, Pauline Hanson, who, unlike the Prime Minister, has shown moral clarity when it comes to the war in Gaza and the safety of Australia's Jewish community, is staring down an investigation under those very laws. If you can't see what's happening here, you're not paying attention.
Guys, cracking down on neo-Nazis. How many neo-Nazis? Again, I'm not giving a cover for them. I don't like neo-Nazis. I'm not on their side. I have no sympathies for them. But let's be fair. How many Jews have been attacked by the neo-Nazis? 0. How many Jews have been killed by Islamists? 15 in the last 3 months or so. There have been firebombs thrown at Jewish synagogues and cafes in Melbourne and Sydney by Islamists, not by far-right neo-Nazis. Then how come Anthony Albanese always goes after the neo-Nazis only and does absolutely nothing about the Islamists? Now you've got the laws. Come on, use them. They don't use them. And what has Anthony Albanese said? This is what he said, guys. Have a look at this. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has declared he will allow the appropriate authorities to engage in any investigation into One Nation leader Pauline Hanson's Muslim comments. Really, he will allow it. Guys, this is political victimization. This is exactly what they did to Trump in America. They went after Trump every which way. And guess what happened? Let me tell you something, because I grew up in Pakistan and I've seen it firsthand. Even if you're going after a crooked politician, especially about their political views, you try to silence them, you try to put them in jail, even if you concoct some corruption scandals. They might be corrupt too, but I'm saying it just never works. Even if you go after a corrupt politician, if it looks like political victimization, it always backfires. Always backfires. So as I said, Anthony Albanese is screwed either way. If he arrests her, she becomes more popular. If he doesn't arrest her, she'll gradually keep becoming more and more popular. And that's bad. Now, what are we fighting for? What is Pauline Hanson is actually fighting for? Guys, if you haven't been to England, please go to England. Please go to Europe. You'll see thousands of years old civilizations are collapsing under the weight of people who have come in from hostile cultures. Have a look at this. This just came out. This is Britain. Look at this. These are Islamists and wokes. Islamists and wokes. They're trampling on the Union Jack, and he's going to shout, Allahu Akbar. There are some other videos of them clashing with the Patriots. And this is the future of Australia, guys. And what Labor doesn't understand, It happened in England. They appeased the Islamists and the Muslim community, thinking that they will vote for the left, but they never do. Once they gain enough power, they put up their own candidates, and rightly so. Because the left stands with the LGBTQ community. Muslims hate them. You can only bend over backwards to appease them only to a certain degree. There will come a point when you will clash with them because your values are fundamentally different from Islamic values. That's why you will clash, but then it'll be too late. And guess what? This story has played out before. Where? In Iran. The Islamists and the socialists, they teamed up against the Shah of Iran. And in the end, it's the Islamists who always win. I've said this before. Have you ever wondered how come totalitarian ideology like communism never established a strong foothold in the Muslim world? You know, there were Pakistani communists, there were Bangladeshi communists, there were even Afghan communists, guys. That was the pretext of the Soviet Union going into Afghanistan because they went to the aid of Afghan communists. But the communists never established a strong foothold in any Muslim country because it's the Islamists who always come out on top. And the Islamists always end up facing the wall and a firing squad. Look at this. This is how they appease. This is Labour MP Kathleen Matthews Ward. She's distributing Ramadan calendars, simping for the Islamists. And Islamists are very clever. As the meme said, you think you're playing them to establish socialism? No, they're playing you to establish Islamism. Always the case. What exactly are you fighting for, guys? Remember this tweet by this pro-Hamas New Yorker? Finally, New York City is coming to Islam. Dogs definitely will have a place in society, just not as indoor pets. And when Senator Randy Fine fired back and he said, no, if we have to choose between Islam, he misspoke. If we have to choose between Islam and our dogs, we'll choose our dogs. It's not just about dogs or dehumanizing anything. It's about standing up for your values, okay? You have your set of values, they have their set of values. You have to protect each and every single value. Your respect for nature, animals, your love for dogs, free speech, all of these things fall in. And they have their own set of values. They hate dogs. You know how much they hate dogs? This is how much they hate dogs. Look at this. This is a bizarre case just broke out. This man, look at him. This is a very religious beard, by the way, Muslims. This is a Deobandi sect of Islam. Very popular in Pakistan, and most British Muslims are Pakistanis. Half of them are Pakistanis. So he's a Deobandi Muslim. Look at this. He killed 60 dogs after posing as a rehoming shelter. He's jailed for 5 years, guys. He was taking people's dogs. He was going to shelter them, rehome them, but he was actually killing them. Surely it's got nothing to do with him hating dogs. Surely. So you know what people are doing now in Britain? People have started taking their dogs out in shopping centers. Look at them run. Because Muslims have been harassing. This harassment is growing everywhere. We don't want dogs in Muslim areas. We don't want dogs here. We don't want dogs there. They don't like dogs. And this is another pathetic attempt of them forcing you to conform to their values, to their lifestyle, to their worldview. When are you going to stand up and say, no, this is Britain, this is Australia, this is America. We love our dogs. We love our pets. We hate halal slaughter. We hate all of that. If you don't like it, you go back to a country where there are no dogs, where you kill dogs. Unfortunately, that's what they do. I think there was another news story in Morocco, I think. They just mass killed thousands of dogs. So this is what people are doing. You might have to do that too, guys. Don't back down. You give them an inch to take a mile. Again, why are we not making these videos about the Vietnamese community in Australia? I don't think of any instance where the Vietnamese or the Chinese people tried to challenge the Australian way of life. That's why there are no clashes. And that's why it's not about race. It's about culture. It's about Australian values. It's about Western values. And Britain, unfortunately, is falling apart. While our native people are drowning in the sea of compassion and multiculturalism, don't let your children attend these stupid events like this. Look, these girls, they went to a mosque in their pro-harmony course or whatever. And look, they're praying the Islamic way. Why are you doing this? Do Muslims allow their children to go to churches? They don't. Try it. Why is there no pressure on the Muslims to bring their kids into Christian events? They even tell their children not to even wish Merry Christmas to fellow Christians. But you are sending your kids because it's hip and cool? Hey, look, harmony, diversity, compassion. Don't do this. This is not cool. Don't do this. Look at this. How disgusting is this? Why are you doing this? My dear Aussies, please keep an eye on your children. The left is feeding you BS. First, they send you this woke BS, this gender pronoun BS. They try to brainwash your children with that, okay? And then they try to brainwash your children with this BS. Do not do this. If your child tells you that, oh, my teacher was taking me to a mosque or something, go to your teacher, say, no, I don't want my child to go to a mosque. I don't want it. I don't want my child to be indoctrinated with this BS. Sorry. And if they pressure you, they'll start moving. In America, they've already started this movement. You know how large corporations like GoFundMe, if you would do a fundraiser for a conservative person, they will shut it down. Social media companies, they were heavily fighting with the left. So what they did, in America, they changed the culture. Now, there are businesses who say, if someone is pushing conservative talking points, we're not going to take away their sponsorship. The culture is changing, and you need to play your role too. If your school is ultra woke and being Islamized, or they're slowly brainwashing your children with foreign hostile cultures, pull the plug, move your kids, speak to the teacher, because we cannot be another Britain, guys. We cannot be another Europe. I have shown you time and time again what has happened in Europe. Europe, or especially Britain, I'm not that well-versed on the rest of Europe. I know loosely what's happening in Germany and France. They arrested Marine Le Pen, their Pauline Hanson, last year on corruption charges. But history often repeats itself. It often rhymes itself. They arrested Marine Le Pen. I think 5 candidates of the AfD, a hard-right political party in Germany, they mysteriously died. I'm not saying anything. They were killed, but isn't that strange? 5 of their politicians mysteriously died. The AfD is there, one nation. And of course, it hasn't happened yet with reform in the UK, but there's another beast coming in the UK, Rupert Lowe, who I align with more than Nigel Farage. So things are changing, guys. And together, collectively, our voice matters. Collectively, if they arrest Pauline Hanson, we make a lot of noise. Jump on X, please. You got to be on X. Follow me on X. Follow Avi Yemeni on X. That's where we create the most noise. I still think he's not stupid enough to arrest Pauline Hanson, but hey, they arrested Marine Le Pen. They cracked down on the AfD. They might do it here as well. But either way, as I said, Albanese is screwed.